Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Season 1 of the Rottweiler Lifestyle. Today's guest is Juwan Hurd. He is the founding member of the SouthCoast Rottweiler Club and the owner of his own kennel. Juwan, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, the reason why I said the owner of your own kennel was because I didn't want to butcher the name. Can you say the name of your kennel for us?
You know what? My original name of the kennel was SouthCoast Rottweiler Center. And that originated because I was doing, 15 years ago, I was doing some training and boarding and stuff like that. So I decided to change the kennel name to Südküste, which means South Coast.
Yeah, the spelling of it definitely is very intimidating, so I didn't want to butcher that. So, Juwan, how did you get into Rottweilers? Because I found, with different people that I've met and that I speak to, it's either something that they've loved, like myself, from when I was 8 or 9 years old. And then there's some people that fell into it. They either started breeding other breeds like German Shepherds, Labradors, French Bulldogs, and then fell into it. So How did you get started?
That's kind of a historical question because growing up as small kids, we always had German Shepherds in our house. I didn't even know what a Rottweiler was. I didn't know what a Rottweiler was probably until first couple years in high school when one of my best friends, his brother and his partner, who were much older than we were, they had a couple Rottweilers, started asking questions, and that's kind of where, the ball game began.
So did you get your first Rottweiler at that point? Or was this like later on in life where you just started buying, breeding? How did you start your own kennel?
I don't want to be, sounding like, some of these guys, starting my kennel, because back in high school, I didn't know what any of this stuff meant. All I know is, it was a cool dog. It was an impressive dog. It was powerful. The dogs seemed to be loyal, which is something I was looking for.
Absolutely.
So I did get my first Rottweiler puppy, which was just a local bred puppy out of West Covina. And this was about 1987 is when I got my first Rottweiler puppy.
You had that one dog, and how did that progress from there? Was it just a pet? Did you start breeding him? Did you start showing him?
At that time, it wasn't my intentions to show dogs. I mean, I like I said, I didn't know what it was. I mean, nothing knew what the future held.
So now fast forward to the start of the SouthCoast Rottweiler Club. How did that get started? What made you start your own club? Was it just a lack of clubs in the area?
Well, it just seems like there were about, and I'm talking Seeger style. I'm not talking about the AKC venue because that's two separate entities. Okay. The Seeger style, which is the German show ring. The shows on the West Coast were becoming few and far between. You had a club up in Northern California that was hosting shows, and you had about 2 or 3 down in Southern California, but sometimes a year would go by, they wouldn't have a show, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to keep going with the club that was located in San Diego, and I moved it up north to my area, and then I just changed the name to SouthCoast Rottweiler Club, and we've been going strong now for 15 years and hosting 2 shows a year. And, it's fun for the dogs, and it's fun for the exhibitors. And I appreciate the continued support, guys.
I went to my, just for the listeners, I went to my first show in April of 2016. And I had been looking for a while, and I don't know how I came across it on Facebook. But I was like, wow, there's one close by. It's only an hour away. I guess a lot of clubs don't even do 2 shows a year. You're actually one of the few Rottweiler clubs that do 2 shows a year, correct?
To my knowledge, I mean, I've been around for a while, and I don't know of any clubs that have ever held, and I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I don't know of any club that holds 2 events a year. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress, physically, mentally, financially. So when someone decides to dive into that realm and they say, we're going to host a show, there's not, everybody thinks we're going to make, a financial gain off of this, and that's not the case, So I actually applaud everyone who actually wants to venture and start having shows. Big round of applause to those individuals. But yeah, SouthCoast Rottweiler Club, and we have 2 shows a year, usually in April, and the second one is usually in October.
Yeah, and I went for the first time, like I said, in April of 2016. And first of all, it's a great show. It's run very well, very professional. One thing that I took away from it, going from the first time, and then it reassured me the second time when I went later that year in October, it's like a big family. I mean, it's a competition, but you're really not competing because everyone is so, and that's a good thing. Everyone's so friendly. Everyone's willing to help each other out. Everyone's always giving advice and exchanging information. And it's definitely a great atmosphere. And I think it's so cool how people just come and they start cooking out. And it's literally a family event. People bring the kids, the cousins, the aunts and uncles. And it just makes it for a great atmosphere, which makes it a great show.
It does, and that's what, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And that's what makes people want to come back. It's all about the family environment. Back in my first show that I ever went to was a USRC show. And it seemed like it was a big family reunion. People you didn't know are coming up to help you show your dogs. They're teaching you stuff. And that's one thing that I take pride on in SouthCoast Rottweiler Club. We got good club members that are experienced in showing dogs, training dogs. And, they're all about helping people. And that's what we want. We want to educate the public. People come to the shows without dogs. They just want to learn before they get their first dog. They want to be able to know what to expect when they go to their first show. And it's an education process. And, I take pride in that and I enjoy it.
Absolutely. And that's actually, just to give the listeners a background as to why I started this podcast is, when you go online, there's so much different information about Rottweilers. And someone, for me, who's always been a fan, but didn't know German versus Eastern European versus American, there's so much information out there. And I just wanted to create a platform where people like yourself can get the information that they're looking for without having to go through, 500 YouTube videos and buy 16 books. And unfortunately, we are part of a breed where a lot of people compete against each other and it can get kind of nasty. And a lot of people don't like helping one another, which again, for the SouthCoast Rottweiler Club, that's what I was so shocked when I went. And it was a pleasant surprise how friendly and open everyone was to helping each other out. Now, you mentioned something about AKC versus Seeger. Talk a little bit about that. What are the key differences between both and what made you want to start the Seeger show?
Well, me doing the Seeger, it's just own personal preference. It's just a style that I like. I like the competition. To me, you're going to get the true tell of the test, when a dog is asked to run multiple laps. Because if a dog is not in shape, first thing they give out is a top line. And that's what the judges are looking for. Rottweiler is supposed to be a working dog, and I don't want to confuse the listeners because a lot of people will say, well, the ADRK is the parent Rottweiler club. Well, the AKC is the parent Rottweiler club who, has ARC underneath them. They set the standard for the Rottweiler in the United States. They don't embrace the tailed Rottweiler yet. Hopefully that is something that's going to change in the near future. But, to get an AKC champion pointed dog on your dog's pedigree, if you will, to me, that's a huge feat. That's huge. And at our Seeger shows, we get a significant amount of AKC people that come out with their dogs. And dogs are welcome at my show. I mean, all my dogs that I have that are littered or dogs I import, obviously they have tails. But right now there's such a battle going on between tail versus docked. And I just wish we can get rid of that, overstep that and say, what, let's go out and compete, have fun. And, you can pick up an AKC catalog, if you will, or I don't know what they call them, but there's a lot of AKC shows around where you may only see one Seeger show within a 500-mile radius of a AKC show. So there are a lot more AKC venues. And believe it or not, I went to my first AKC event with my new male that I got back in January under the urging of a friend of mine, Robert Galusha. He's like, dude, you got to show this dog. He's a nice dog. He'll do well. I was apprehensive only because he had the tail. Structure-wise, I wasn't concerned. Temperament-wise, I wasn't concerned. It was because of the tail. Lo and behold, it was a big show, probably the biggest show I've ever been in my life. And I've been to the Club Seeger show. I've been to a Seeger show in Slovenia. Been to a couple shows in Italy and Serbia. The show in Palm Springs, the AKC show, it had over 2,000 dogs there. They're not just Rottweilers. It was an all-breed show. But in my specific ring, it was all Rottweilers, and the dog ended up winning first place. So it was kind of exciting because the first time you go somewhere and the first time you win, it's always exciting. You go home with a smile on your face.
Absolutely. It's a nice drive back home.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So do you have any, you mentioned you've got the show twice a year, April, October. Anything else you plan on doing with the club? Do you have any big plans coming up? Or you just are trying to push those two shows, trying to get more people out to the event? What's the future looking like for the club?
Well, in 2018, I had thought about it, with a couple club members to possibly host 3 shows this year. Unfortunately, my schedule has increased. My kids are getting older. They're in high school now. So when that happens, activities come your way. I coach high school football. So in the fall, my schedule just gets packed. Like in October, I have the show. Well, it's not uncommon for me to have to coach a football game on a Friday night. I got judges waiting for me to go eat. I got to go coach my football game. I don't get home till 12 o'clock. I got to take a shower, go pick up the judges, entertain them, and then we got the show at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's tough. So I'm trying to pass the baton to some of our club members so they can actually lead the charge when it comes to the fall. But there's not many shows in California or on the West Coast, period. It's not just California. I mean, you look at Washington, 10, 15 years ago, there'd be a show in Washington. There'd be a show in Oregon. Northern California would have a show. There'd be a show in Arizona. It's just so few and far between. I'm like, 2018, I want to start doing seminars, education on the breed with judges that are coming over. I want to start, I want to have a Schützen trial or an IAPO trial that they're called now. And possibly, I'm close to saying, we're going to do 3 shows this year. But as of right now, it's only the 2. Once the holidays pass, I'll sit down with the club and we'll discuss the future and definitely let the public know. But as it stands right now, definitely 2 shows, April and October. And then, we'll also throw in the trial at some point.
Well, that's huge. I mean, just even having 2 a year is great. I mean, to throw a 3rd one in the mix, I mean, that's pretty exciting. Hopefully that goes through.
I appreciate it, man. It's going to be a lot of work if we can do it, if we can pull it off, which I think we can. It's just a matter of when. California, you got 4 or 5 months out of the year where temperatures are pretty high and it's not good for the dog. So, we're limited to the winter and spring. But the idea I have is to, in the summer, have a good show in like in an indoor area where it's air conditioned for the dogs, maybe somewhere by the beach or something. I mean, we have to get creative and figure something out, but we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned judges. What do you look for in a Rottweiler? Because, again, you ask different people, and some people like the bigger head, the mush face, the big stock. What do you look for? What's your ideal Rottweiler?
Oh, man. That's kind of
I know it's a broad question.
Well, it's not so much a broad question because if I have a male walking down the street on a leash, I want him to look like a male. I don't particularly like the short muzzle. I've seen health issues come out of that. Once again, it's different strokes for different folks. I don't want that Doberman look either. But when I get a male out of the trailer or out of the crate to go to a show ring, I want people to say that's a male. When a female comes out, sometimes these females look like males, and it's just a lot of judges now, they're starting to gawk at that. A lot of judges don't want to see that in the ring. First and foremost for me, the first thing I look at in a Rottweiler, whether I'm buying one or, want to keep one out of a litter, the first thing I look for is temperament. The dog's got to have, in my opinion, he can't be nervy, she can't be nervy, and it's got to be well-rounded, and to piggyback off of that, the dog has to be socialized at a very young age. A lot of times, you get these dogs that are imported and you can tell they lived in the kennel for 2 years of their life, and you put them on a leash and they look at you like, what's going on? Because they've never been in that situation. Yeah, and then you get, a situation that ends up on television where, a dog did something to a neighbor or a kid or something, and that's something that we don't want, especially us Rottweiler people. We don't want that stigma. And we've seen a significant decrease in that, and it kind of all goes back to getting puppies from dogs that are breed tested, and unfortunately, breeders around don't breed test their dogs. They're just putting 2 dogs together and saying, hey, let's have puppies, and after we sell puppy 1 and puppy 2, I'll take you guys all out to dinner and have a fancy dinner, and it shouldn't be that way. These dogs have to be cleared health-wise, and they should have to pass their breed test.
Now let's talk about that. You mentioned breed test. What does that entail? Someone listening, okay, breed test, the way they look, the way they act. Talk a little bit more about that.
Fortunately, many years ago, it was the ZTP, or, as the USRC called it, the BST, which is the breed suitability test, which is basically you're measuring the dog. You're measuring the dog's body length, muzzle length, skull, chest, length of body. The eyes can't be too light. Obviously, the dog has to have a correct bite. All the teeth have to be in. And then there's a series of tests that the dog has to pass. He has to pass, a traffic test. You're kind of forming a tunnel, if you will. The dog has to walk through the tunnel. The judge picks up a can, he shakes it, it's got rocks or pennies in it. The dog can't react. There's also a gunshot from a starter pistol. The dog can't react to it. And this dog is supposed to do this test with strangers that he's never seen before, and he can't react to that. A lot of times I've seen dogs fail because they can't be measured. You know, you get a wicket that the judge measures the dog with, and as soon as the judge touches the dog with the wicket, the dog is cowering down, he's growling. You know, the judge will be patient, he'll try again, but sometimes the dogs are DQ'd right there and they're held back, which means they can take the test again in about another 6 months or so at the judge's leisure. If the dog cannot pass in Germany, okay, and I'm saying in Germany, or even here in the United States for that matter, for those who actually follow the breed test standard, the judge has the option to say, you know what, this dog can retest in 6 months. If the dog does it again in 6 months, he's deemed unbreedable. He should not breed because those bad traits will go to the puppy.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's an interesting education. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of people, as I said, they're just getting these babies. Sometimes these dogs are 12 months old, you know, and they're having puppies in the backyard and they're selling them for $1,500, $2,000. And, you know, it's kind of watering down the breed, if you will, which is kind of a black eye to the people who are actually serious about it. You know what I mean? Or
even backyard breeding. And, you know, people think that they can get $2,500 for, and it's like, well, are you crazy? Where are you getting that price? I mean, there's a huge difference between what you're breeding and what other breeders that are asking for that price. You know, it's a huge difference. But, you know, everybody thinks they can get that, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, it's sad. You know, I mean, you know, we talk about 1987. The first show I went to was in 1989. In California, there were probably only, you know, and again, I'm speaking from, you know, the German style. I'm not talking AKC because I know it's a little bit different. And there were more breeders AKC wise. But you talk about Seeger. I mean, there were probably only maybe 15 kennels in the U.S. at that time that were actually importing dogs from Germany, having litters. And these dogs were, you know, had their breed test, their Korong. You know, now you look around. Shit, you can go to the swap meet and buy a puppy. I mean, it's just
right.
There's a million breeders in California alone, and it's sickening because they're not doing it for the right reasons. You know, they're doing it for an alternative reason, and it's sad.
Yeah,
it's a sad state we're in.
They're doing it for a quick buck. No, I totally agree. And going back to the breed test, does that affect shows at all? And the reason why I ask that is that I've been at shows where I've seen dogs DQ'd because they bit the judge. You know, the judge is trying to check the teeth. Is the inspector saying, you know, not only shouldn't you breed this dog, but you also shouldn't be showing this dog as well? Or do they not have anything to do with one another?
It's a little bit of both. You know, I've been fortunate to ring steward at a lot of shows, not just my shows, but, you know, I ring stewarded at a show in Germany. I've ring stewarded at a show out of state. A ring steward is basically a judge's assistant inside the ring. I've seen young dogs, you know, dogs that were 10 months old, you know, 15 months old, bite judges because they don't have the proper training. You know, it's just someone who's sitting on Facebook saying, you know what, I want to go to a show. It's cool. They don't train their dog. They don't reach out and say, hey, you know what, guys, John Doe, I'm interested in attending your show. What can I do to prepare my dog for the show? They just get their dog out of the kennel, put him in the truck, say, you know what, I'm going to a show. And then saying, you know, you have an accident in the ring because the dog has no idea what he's supposed to do. Dog bites the judge in the ring. It's due out of stress. It's not because he's necessarily a bad dog. He's just stressed out and nervous. It's what we call a fear biter.
No, I definitely agree. And I think that ties back into, I know you mentioned, you know, earlier where you mentioned something about wanting to do seminars. And I think that'd be great because, you know, it's teaching people, how do you get your dogs prepared for the show? What should you be feeding them? How much water should they be drinking that morning, the night before? You know, a lot of people don't know that. They get there and dogs are dehydrating and they're throwing up, or it's just people aren't prepared. So I definitely agree with what you just said.
You know, everything is an education piece. You know, the bloat, you know, ruptured cruciates, you know, it's just things of what to do and what not to do. And I think before someone makes a decision to buy a dog, getting into training, you know, getting into showing, they need to sit down with someone who's been around, who's done it, so they can actually, you know, be their mentor, if you will, to say these are the do's and don'ts when you're training your dog, because you can save a lot of heartache if you just, you know, so what can I do?
Got it. Yeah, and that's, you know, again, that's why this podcast was created. That's why I felt it was fitting to have you be the first guest on the show, because of you do a lot for the Rottweiler community. You do a lot for the breed. I just thought it was fitting with your experience and your knowledge. Now, you also mentioned health clearances along with the breed test. Talk a little bit about that. What should they be tested for?
There are a lot of tests that should be done. Not only should they be done, they have to be done. You know, obviously hips and elbows have to be x-rayed. You know, in the United States, it's at 24 months of age. through OFA. In Germany, it's at 15 months of age. You can also get a heart clarification, through OFA. You can get a patella. You can get full dentition. You can get thyroid. You can get eyes. Because if the dog comes back positive with a heart condition and you breed him to a female that has a heart condition, well, guess what? Those puppies are more likely going to have a heart condition.
Right. Same
with hip dysplasia and the long hair, the long coat gene. I mean, there's just so much that people don't know, or they know it, they just refuse to do it. And, that's why I like the German breed standard. And I also like ARC, because ARC, in order to be an ARC member, they require you to do these health clearances before you breed. And I think it's important. And I wish that everyone would adhere to that. Unfortunately, we don't. You can Google some of the Rottweiler rescues in LA, and you'd be astonished how many local breeders have their dogs inside those rescue centers because people, can't handle them, a health condition that nobody wants to care for. And it's sad.
That's very sad. Wow. Now, speaking of health clearances, breeding, you've got your own kennel.
Yes.
How many dogs do you have?
I have 4 dogs. I have 1 male and 3 females.
I saw on Facebook you posted a couple weeks ago, not even that long ago, actually pretty recent. You got a Christmas litter.
Yes.
Bruno. Talk a little bit about that. That looks like a great pedigree. Where's he from? You just recently went to Europe as well. Did you pick him up from there, or what? Just go into a little bit about that breeding.
I have a pretty good relationship with the Von der Schero kennel, and I've actually probably bought maybe 5 to 10 dogs from them over the last, 20 years or so.
Out of Germany?
Out of Germany, yeah.
Okay.
Kirsten and Bernd are the actual kennel owners, but Nancy Kilmer has actually... she's the daughter of the breeders, and she's kind of been a little bit more involved. 2 years ago, I went to the Club Seeger show, and I came back with a female puppy. I showed her a couple times. In Germany, she placed really well. First place a couple times. Here, she got first place a couple times. In April, I took her back to get her IPO title and her BH title, some other training done with the hopes of, showing her at the Club Seeger show. Well, in October, I got the call. She came in heat. It would be a good pairing to breed her with Bruno. I've actually seen Bruno a couple times in person. He is a fantastic dog. I mean, he is the poster picture of what you'd want in a Rottweiler, in my opinion. He has the pedigree. He's a Lackey son, which a lot of people, may not know who Lackey is, but I like Lackey. And of course, you look at, the pedigree of these dogs, and, it's going to be a phenomenal, in my opinion, it'd be a phenomenal litter. The mother, Omira, she's been health tested, and all these health tests can be found on OFA.com. Everything's been done on her. The father's the same. There's a new health test that came out. It's called JLPP. Both dogs have been tested negative for that. So, that's something I'm looking forward to.
Sounds like a great litter. And, I actually, before we jumped on this call, was looking at the pedigree, and those puppies are going to be amazing. Good for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people showing interest. Some reservations have already come in. So, we're pretty excited. And I don't have a lot of litters,
I was just going to ask you that. It doesn't seem like you have a lot of litters. You're very particular of who you breed, when you breed. And actually, my next question to you is, how often should you be breeding a female? It's unfortunate to put a female through that so many times, year in and year out. I just wanted to get your 2 cents about that.
Well, you know what? I mean, you can talk 25 breeders. You're going to get 15, answers on one way, and you'll get 10 on the other. 15 people may say, hey, it's okay to breed your female back to back. Me personally, I would never do that because, like I said, my dogs actually work, and they, I want them to have fun. I have a female here now, Mocha. She's from the Royal Breed Kennel in Serbia. She's a hero daughter. She's a phenomenal female. I showed her a couple times. She's got some V1s, she's got some V2s, and she's got some V3s. I've only had one litter with her, and I've had her now for 2 years. Obviously, females go in heat 2 to 3 times a year. You can breed them back to back to back. But I just don't see the purpose in that. You're going to get a good quality litter from, a good breeding. And then you can turn on Facebook any day of the week, and there's some local people, without saying names, that are, every day. It seems like every Tuesday they're having a litter or two. And, the one thing that I despise is when someone puts on their advertisement, we're breeding to better the breed. Okay. How are you bettering the breed? You're not health testing the dog. You're not breed testing the dog. You're not going to shows. You're not going to trials. What are you doing to better the dog other than having 50 puppies a week?
Yeah, and it's who's buying these dogs, where are these dogs going? And, a lot of the times they're not able to sell out the breed, sell out the litter. And it's like, now they're stuck with 6, 7 puppies. And where are these dogs going? I can't believe, like you said, without saying names, it's just week after week. It's almost like it's scheduled in the calendar that every Tuesday at 3 p.m., we're going to do another breeding. It's unbelievable how often people are breeding.
Yeah, and for someone to just get in the game, and I'll call it the game, to just get in the game and you've only been in it for 10 minutes and you're having 4 litters already, and now you're the Jehovah to Rottweilers, and you're the know all to end all, and it's just, how's that possible? No one's ever seen you at a show, no one's ever seen you at a trial, no one's ever seen you at a seminar, but yet you're constantly producing all these dogs. You're the expert and you're constantly producing all these dogs. And then I'm getting phone calls as a show host. Hey, I want to enter my dog, but I don't have the papers because this person give me my papers, or it's bad. You know what I'm saying? It's bad. And if there's, one wish that I have is, I wish that, there was some regulation going on. Like in Germany, as soon as you have to register that dog with ADRK, the breed warden has to come out and inspect your kennel when the puppies are born, not once a year, when the puppies are born. I just wish there were strict guide regulations of how many litters someone can have a year.
Got it. So we talked about Rottweilers. What is, you got kids, you got a house, you coach football. What does Juwan like to do in his free time? I know you're a big football fan. Your team seems to slaughter every team they play every week.
Well, that is my free time. My family, my kids, like I said, they're becoming of age now where, I actually enjoy spending a lot of time with them. And, coaching football and just hanging out with family and friends. I got a lot of close friends that live around the area that we like to hang out. We train on the weekends. And, to me, that's the valuable point.
It's all about family. And that's good that you guys get to spend a lot of time with one another.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Juwan, if people want to reach out to you with more information about your kennel, wanting a puppy from you, get more information about your upcoming shows, what's your social media? Where can people find you at?
I'm on Facebook, Juwan Hurd, also Instagram, Von der Südküste on Instagram.
Well, guys, that was Juwan Hurd, again, owner of the SouthCoast Rottweiler Club. Juwan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Can't wait for the next show in April.